Next up, we are joined by New York Times bestselling author Gabrielle Prendergast. She is an award-winning writer, teacher, designer, and she has some amazing books: Audacious, Capricious, Zero Repeat Forever, and Pandas on the East Side. Gabrielle will be talking about her wonderful book, If Pluto Was a Pea. So, Gabrielle, welcome.
Hi, it's
There's
nice
the
to be
book.
here. I'm thrilled.
Oh, it is so wonderful to have you here. So I have to begin my questions with this. Have you always loved astronomy, space, planets? How did you get interested in this topic?
I have always loved planets. I've loved looking through telescopes. And, I'm a science fiction author, so space and all the possibilities of space travel have always been very much in my mind. Even when I was a kid, I was really into Star Wars and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. So I've always loved the planets. This book actually came about around the time that Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet. And my daughter at the time was, I think she might have been 7 or something like that. And she was really affronted that Pluto had been demoted. So she asked me, like, how small is Pluto? Like, why this isn't fair? And so I said, well, if Earth was like, say, a golf ball, Pluto would be the size of a pea. And that's where the book came from, If Pluto Was a Pea.
Isn't it amazing how ideas start? Just a simple conversation with your child begins an amazing, beautiful book. Well, we have to address that. Do you think Pluto is a planet? What do you think about this demotion?
Well, I think it's really a shame because I think it would have been much more exciting if they had promoted one of the
Mhm.
other Kuiper Belt objects, like Eris, which is actually a little bit bigger than Pluto. Like the news that day, new planet would have been just much better than
Mhm.
like forget about Pluto. So
Mhm.
um, it's all a little bit arbitrary, right? I mean, they do have obviously rules for what qualifies as a planet, but the I think the opportunity to make the world understand that the solar system is not limited to what we know. So when growing up, I was like, there are 9 planets, right? And that's just kind of accepted. But the truth is that we don't know that much about what is beyond the orbit of Pluto. And we might be surprised
Mhm.
by what we find as we explore more. To me, that's more exciting.
Mhm.
So I still think of Pluto as a planet.
I do as well. That's the way I learned it. I'm curious, you so beautifully explain the size of Pluto in your book. Can you give us some of the comparisons that you make for the size of Pluto to give us context?
Well, I think one of my favorite is and I probably the most important is to understand how big the sun is in comparison to Earth. So, in the book, it's described as a tent that is about 15 feet wide. So, if you imagine one of those sort of domed tents,
Mhm.
a very large one for a family, and then another one on the bottom, you get this large sort of um, 15-foot wide sun, and then the earth is a golf ball compared to it. And I think a lot of people, especially young kids, don't understand that scale.
Mhm.
Um, and then, of course, Pluto is this tiny little thing. So when I first was writing the book, I was thinking in terms of, a Volkswagen Beetle around that size.
Mhm.
So sort of one stacked on top of the other, and this giant thing with a little golf ball, or even the bigger planets. The Neptune is a grapefruit, right? It's still pretty small, or Jupiter is a beach ball, still pretty small compared to the sun.
Mhm. Beach ball of pea. What a comparison.
Yeah.
My Gabrielle, you taught me something, and I must admit, I'm an English teacher. Pluto has moons. I had no idea. Can you tell me about the moons of Pluto?
The moons of Pluto, I have them on my screen. Nix, Styx, Kerberos, and Charon. And Charon is the biggest one. So if Pluto was a pea, Charon would be like an apple seed. And I can't remember now. It's in the book. Nix and Styx would be too small would be like grains of sand.
Mhm.
And yeah, here it is. Nix, Kerberos, and Hydra would be like grains of sand, and the smallest moon, Styx, would be too small to see.
That's
So,
my.
but they're still massive in terms of our understanding. So Pluto is the size of Brazil. If you wanted, everything's the size of Brazil. If you wanted to park Pluto on Earth, you would need a parking spot as big as Brazil. So Pluto's smallest moon, Styx, would be like the size of a town in Brazil. You know, so it's still pretty big. It's not like Styx is like a human size thing. You could walk around on Styx. Yeah.
Gabrielle, I like to think we started a new book today. Comparison to Brazil. You'll have to find something there to write that new book.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes people compare things to Texas too, but Brazil is much bigger than Texas. So Pluto would need to land in Brazil.
Well, Gabrielle, I really loved your book, but I especially love the ending. Could you read those last few pages of your book and just talk to us about that?
Sure. If Pluto was a pea, Pluto's smallest moon, Styx, would be too small to see. And you would be much smaller than that, but still not too small to think big thoughts and do great things.
Gabrielle, why'd you decide to end your book that way?
I think, well, originally the book was, the ending was a little bit more information about the scale of the solar system. And the book was more, more of an educational book. And my editor wanted it to be more personalized like that and sort of simplify it. And so I started thinking about, my interest in writing about space or science or anything is kind of to find that meeting point between science and personal life, right? So that's one of the reasons why the objects in my book are things that you have in your house. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to bring it completely, full circle, right down to you. Like, who are you in terms of the scale of the planet? And also, this was like a little defense of Pluto at the end. Like, why did Pluto get demoted just for being small? Being small is not, it doesn't mean that you're not important, right? So that's kind of like a little, both my little dig at the planetary scientists, but also like a little reassurance for the child reader who's reading the book that size isn't everything, right? So that's how I decided to end the book. That's what I wanted to bring it back to the personal.
Well, Gabrielle, I think it brought a smile to my face when I read those last two pages. So thank you so very, very much.
You're welcome.